Good afternoon, everyone.
There.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, Melissa,
Yes, Tom.
could you have, or put in an envelope for me, a paper copy of that statement, the financial thing we gotta fill out?
Sure, I can do that.
Cause I'll be stopping in tomorrow to see, Pat about, something that I have to get, and I can just pick it up then, if that'd be okay.
Sure, sounds fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Melissa, you should have gotten the year-end report also. Did you get that from us?
The year-end report? No, I did not.
All right. hold on. What's your email address real quick?
It's mmiller@whymissingborough.org.
Borough spelled out or Borough B-O-R-O?
BORO.
.com?
Org.
Oh. There you go. It should be in your mailbox.
Thank you.
A letter that needs to be signed by
Okay, I got 12 o'clock. So I will call the meeting of the Fire and Police Committee to order. Melissa, roll call, please.
Okay. Bill Jenks,
I am here.
Tom Mull,
Here.
Tom Boucher,
Here.
Fred Levering, John Woodward,
Here.
Keith Durr.
Here.
Okay, our first order of business is reorganization of the committee. So I will entertain motion for committee chair.
Nominate Bill Jenks to continue as chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it. Thank you, I
There
think.
you go.
Our condolences, Bill.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments and wish those to be restricted as they are for the public safety and fire and police. Are there any public comments?
Yes, sir. Adrian Jadik.
Okay, Mr. Jadik, go ahead.
I have sent a few pictures to Melissa and she's gonna show them. But before I'm gonna present what I'm talking about, I wish to make an objection on Sunshine Act, and that's not part of my comment. That's just an objection outside the public comment. That the meeting agenda has an executive session at the end. And it does not specify what it is for. Customarily, the executive sessions are not by you, but by every other public entity done before a meeting, and then they are disclosed. The subject is disclosed at the subsequent meeting. So if you put it at the end of the meeting, you should at least provide the reason for that, because there is no other time. When are you going to provide it? At the next Fire and Police Committee meeting? So it's to me, it makes no sense. Anyway, that being said, this is the end of the objection. I'm going to go to my public comment. So I'm speaking today in opposition of a decision made by this committee. I think it was 2019. I'm sure you guys know about it, but I can provide you for more information if you forgot. So this decision was made at the recommendation of the previous chief of police to install 2 no parking signs before and after the walkway at 47 Cardinal Road. And there are a few points here. This decision had no precedent, and in the same time created what I think is an unnecessary precedent. And you seem very keen of following precedents, but in this particular case, strangely enough, you did not. Second, this decision was based on false information presented to this commission and ultimately to the council by the police chief. 3, based on subsequent right to know requests, no formal request was presented by the owners of that property, which suggests that the police chief acted independently and the falsehoods were of his own. 4, opposition by adjacent property owners, including us, was buried by the borough manager, Mr. Brandenburg, and consequently not presented and considered or discussed at the meeting. 5, the main justification was that the emergency vehicles cannot reach the residents at 47, despite the fact that they have more than 100 feet of curbside, providing plenty access for emergency crews. Such a reason is absurd. Everybody would want a no parking sign before and after their walkway. I mean, there are many situations like this in Wyomissing. Why don't they all have no parking signs? Because emergency vehicles do not need to go necessarily on a walkway. That's what it is. So that was completely nonsense. And to show you how false these reasons were, and this, I just came upon these old security footages showing how the very owners were parking to block their own walkway. So how come this reason? Cars were left in front of the walkway in the whole night, day, night. What were they going to do? So if they had a heart attack, they would call the ambulance and they say, okay, wait a minute, let me move my car before you can come and get me. It is completely absurd. So Melissa, you can scroll. These are just a few shots out of plenty of situations, winter, summer, what have you, day, night. This is another one. Keep going. This is a little bit masked by the tree, but you can see the car is there right in front of the walkway. And the next one, I think there is a daylight one right there. Yeah. Just during daylight, the same situation, different car. So they were on a regular basis, they were parked in front of the walkway. So that seemed to have no problem for them or for the chief. So why is that why was this decision made when this is obvious? And I can provide you many more, screenshots like these, which shows that the chief lied to you. I don't know how much you knew, whatever your reasons were, but this was a wrong decision. And I hereby ask you to reconsider it. I think this is ridiculous. Nobody needs that. The precedent is dangerous and absurd. Nobody does that. No other township does that. This is just the chief doing whatever he wants for his friends. This is how it looks like. I don't know of any other reason. So thank you very much for the time. That concludes my public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jadik. Are there any other public comments? Hearing no other public comments, we will move on to the fire department report.
Good afternoon. I have a lot of information today. I'll try and be brief and touch the highlights, and everybody should have the full actual information if they want to follow up with it, as well as I'm available for any questions. For January 2021 to date, there have been 71 responses consisting of 6 fires, 26 medical or motor vehicle accidents, 7 hazardous conditions, 28 alarm activations, and 4 smoke detector installations. 47 responses in the borough, 24 outside of the borough. There's been no property loss or saved property for the month, an average of 4.5 personnel per incident. And we had 3 volunteer responses so far for the year. Okay, so for the in-depth December report, there were 232 responses system-wide. We had specifically in Wyomissing Borough, we had a fire loss of $41,600, saved property, saved value of $2,559,000. That was for 1 building fire, 1 rubbish fire against a building, and 1 vehicle fire. We gave aid 48 times. We received aid 42 times. We had 67 overlapping calls. Our average dispatch to en route was 1 minute 53 seconds, and dispatch to on scene was 6 minutes 54 seconds. We gave aid to Western Berks Fire Department 13 times, Leesport Fire Company 1, Shoemakersville Fire Company 1, Greenfields Fire Company 2, West Reading 10, Muhlenberg Township 8, Shillington 1, Kenhurst 1, and Cumru Township 9. That's all I have for that. I do also have the year-end report. 2020 was quite the challenging year. We're still working on challenges with COVID, as well as everybody in everyday life and everything else. Generally, I'd like to thank Borough Council for your continued support, provide service. Total responses system-wide for the year of 2020 was 2,594 calls. That was a decrease of 298 calls from 2019. There was 991 responses in the borough itself, 554 mutual aid calls. Wyomissing Fire Department specifically ran, out of those 2,594 calls, they ran 1,526 calls. We had 759 overlapping calls. We were well within NFPA 1720 compliance. Our average dispatch to en route time was 1 minute 54 seconds for the year. Dispatch to on scene for the year was 6 minutes 54 seconds. And our average turnout per incident was 5.3 personnel. Fire loss, specifically to the borough, we had a fire loss of $282,700. Saved property in the borough was $5,021,852. System-wide, there was 760 QRS responses. Of those, there was 129 patient contacts in the borough, and they also, out of those 760 calls, Wyomissing specifically ran 335 calls. Training hours are listed. We had a total of 5,354 hours and 6 minutes of training time. Majority of that was for the career staff. Then we have, I'm sorry, that was incidents, man hours and incidents. For training system-wide, we had 1,155 hours and 6 minutes. Again, specifically, the volunteers were at 387.36. Career staff was at 728.20. Total fire inspections, I kind of broke Troy's report down. His full report's in here as well. Total inspections for the borough was 511. Now that includes corrective actions for calls, actual full-fledged inspections, and also like fire drills and stuff like that, that we are still actively participating in the school districts. Investigation of fires, there was 42 total. I've only calculated between Spring and Wyomissing. In Wyomissing Borough, there were 24. In Troy's full report, he also has West Reading broken down as well. And this is a big thing that's really low compared to last year, obviously with COVID in play. Total fire prevention events were only 10. In previous years, they were up in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Obviously, we're limited to the contact that we have, but we're trying to come up with some new ways. This year, we actually started a virtual thing where we can do things virtually and create things and send them to the school so they can actually see the message via like a Zoom or something, a Teams meeting versus us being in person. Total fire prevention hours for the year of 2020 were 25 hours. Total contacts estimated to be 648. Smoke detector installs for the year 59, carbon monoxide detector installations 85, and replacement batteries were 7. That's all I have for actual reports. If anybody has any questions, let me know, reach out to me or whatever. Or, you know, if you get a chance to review the actual full reports or whatever and have any questions on anything, please feel free to reach out to me.
Anybody have any questions on the monthly or annual reports for Colin?
How are those extra guys that do the inspecting and stuff with Troy? How's that working out? Good?
Good. Right now, we only have one. One had left pretty fairly early into this year with some issues, personnel issues. That's working out well. We're debating on whether or not we're going to look to replace that other person. If we do, it'll probably be towards the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. But between Troy and the one part-time inspector that we have, you know, we're definitely ramping out inspections. Like I said, total for spring and Wyomissing were 997. There was a bunch in West Reading as well too. Wyomissing Borough actually having 511 of those inspections, where spring only had 486. So we're really doing a lot with that. Kind of reluctant at this point. Normally we would put the on-duty crews out to do inspections and stuff like that. But again, with trying to limit contacts and stuff like that, even with fire drills, I'm not necessarily sending the crews out. I'm trying to handle those by myself, or if I'm not available, we'll send the on-duty crews out, but trying to limit the exposure of our people that are coming in contact with COVID on a daily basis, to try and prevent that with, you know, infecting other people possibly.
Oh, that's a smart move.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And any other questions for Colin? How about the tower?
Okay. Well, yeah, that was kind of, we've been having some issues with it. The long and the short of it is what needs to be replaced are the actual turbo itself and the 6 injectors, as well as a fuel leak. So we have a pretty substantial bill coming up from that. We tried to get it worked on locally with no success at Diesel Service. So we actually had to take it up to Cummings in Harrisburg. We got authorization from the borough on the 14th of January to proceed with estimated repair cost of $29,697.53. One of the things we'll see is, I mean, I don't have any answers for that. Other than that, number one, it's a 2013. Number two, I'm not a mechanic by any means. Towers in general are very heavy. You're looking at upwards of 80,000 pounds on that particular apparatus. So that's a lot of weight for it running and stuff like that. Figuring it was running pretty hard. Now it's kind of in the reserve parameters, but the new ladder truck, which ultimately has the 7-year warranty, you know, is basically running 1,526 calls a year, if not more. So I'm actually working on, I'm going to sit down with Borough Manager Brandenburg, and we're going to come up with some sort of a plan as to what we want to do. I did do some quick research on years out of repairs. The biggest issue now is obviously it's out of warranty. So going back through, like I started at 2016, our expenses were fairly low because stuff was still kind of under warranty. One of the big things on an aerial device is its annual service, and certification inspection. So you're looking at, for those alone, those two components, its annual service and the aerial certification, anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 a year. Now with the new ladder truck, we're going to throw another $1,400 roughly into that for the pump maintenance and stuff like that as well. So we've averaged anywhere from our highest month was obviously as we get up into 2020, as it went off of warranty. Looked like we had repairs in 2020 of $21,995.42. I subtracted off of that the aerial service and inspection for that year, which was $6,944. So that was one of the highest years of maintenance in 2020. We ultimately spent $15,051.41 on actual maintenance. Now, what that kind of includes is tires, brakes, you know, that kind of general stuff. That's what we see that we're spending a lot of money on, batteries and stuff like that. The tandem axle truck, obviously with the weight, you need that extra set of axles, but you got your drag tires, which are just kind of there to absorb the weight, but they're getting chewed up because they're really just kind of getting drug around and stuff like that. So we got a lot of homework to do as far as what we want to do or how we want to do it to kind of maintain compliance with NFPA and everything and the apparatus that we have, and kind of put up some recommendations to the borough and how they see fit, how we want to move forward with this or what we want to do. One of the things that I did mention to Manager Brandenburg was the engine that's like I believe that's an 09 off the top of my head. That's kind of really sitting dormant in reserve. We really haven't done anything to that. And it's the beginning of its life. It pretty sat for many years, not running many calls because the tower was pretty much running everything. They weren't running med calls. They weren't running accidents and stuff like that at that station. We're utilizing the crews more so now to actually provide them, to provide the borough residents with the service that they need because we got certified guys sitting there. So then it kind of ran hard once we started running those until we replaced it with the current Quint that we have in station now. But we do know I did increase my budget line item this year in vehicle maintenance twofold because we would have 2 aerial devices that would need to get us annual service. And we also know that the engine has some engine issues that's going to need some engine work at some point if we're going to start running that hard again. Rough ballpark figures, I don't know, you know, between 10 maybe and $15,000. It's got some head gas leaks and stuff like that, which really hasn't been touched. Nothing has been done to that since we had it. At this point in time, the way it's sitting and the way it's running, it's not a big deal. We're just got to watch that if we end up starting to run that hard again. So we'll be providing you with some more information once things calm down here a little bit and I get a chance to sit down with Borough Manager Brandenburg and we can kind of get a plan together here to present to you guys to, you know, for you guys to make a decision.
Colin, is some of the stuff on the engine because it's not being run? Like, you know.
I think it's just because of age. That thing, knock on wood, has held up very well. I mean, because like I said, for its first years of life, it just kind of sat there dormant, which was okay. Then we really started running it hard. And it ran hard up until the point where we put the ladder in service, which was about April of 2020. At this point now, it's just kind of sitting dormant. You know, it's just ultimately a reserve piece. So when the ladder goes out to service, gets serviced or whatever, whatnot, we have a pumping device there in station yet.
Okay, but the crews are running the pumps, the pump to keep it, you know, up.
Yes,
and
that every apparatus gets in, or it goes through its maintenance check weekly, a full-fledged in-depth inspection weekly. And then once a week too, it's being ran up the highway, obviously, because it doesn't, you know, so it's getting a good run in on the engine and stuff like that weekly. As far as like the frontline apparatus, the Quint itself and one of the towers here, that's getting kind of ran, every day and operated and putting through the motions. But the engine, because it's sitting in reserve, that's only getting done weekly.
Okay. All righty. As far as the repairs go, yeah, let's keep Pat up to date so he can keep finance up to date in case these repairs go over the 29.6.
Yeah, I'm hoping not. That was pretty good estimate with what they were doing. What took the longest time is, and what's very frustrating to me is that, again, by no means I'm not a mechanic. We do have two guys down there. Two of our captains down there are very mechanically inclined and actually worked on big trucks and fire apparatus. And you know, they agreed with what the quote was and everything, but the downfall and the length of time that it took us to get this information was because everything's kind of proprietary. So at spring, we're finding that out with E1. You know, we have to get the parts from an E1 dealer. If we go with the servicing company that we like, Glick, which is Pierce, they jack the prices up for them to try and get the parts. With Seagrave, they didn't want to give any pricing to the Cummings shop specifically for the exhaust repairs. That's where they needed it, not necessarily with the engine stuff, but the delay was getting the stuff for the exhaust leak repairs and stuff like that. Because again, they don't want to work with anybody that's not associated with them. And I guess that's with everything anymore, the way things are. But we ended up getting that information. Captain Nestor made some calls actually out to Seagrave and to the local service dealer and rattled some cages. And with that, it seemed like then they kind of were free to give the information and stuff like that that we needed. So I haven't had any updated information. The quote was signed on the 14th. They were going to get, that was towards the end of the week. They were going to get working on it the beginning of the next week. So they had to order all the parts because they were waiting for the quote to be signed before they actually ordered all the parts and stuff like that. So I'm hopeful that that's back by the end of this week or the beginning of next week.
When we approved the expenditure, it sounded like it was pretty much decided that you were going to fix it and then sell it. Is that no longer the case, or are you still considering that?
Yeah, I think that's what the consideration is of the borough and stuff like that. And I can't dispute that or argue that. The only thing I can lay out for you is looking to try and follow an FPA and coming up with some kind of a plan of, you know, if we do end up selling that, you know, what we're going to do down the road and how long down the road and kind of lay more of a definitive, better plan out.
Keith, when I meet with Colin, we're going to be talking about getting the appraisal and the steps to go through as far as the municipal operations for sale and disposal of equipment.
It seems like maybe we want to continue to do that on a quick basis to eliminate any more expenditures on this thing.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else, Colin?
That's all I have. If anybody has any questions, again, feel free to give me a call, send me an email, and I'll help you out whatever I can.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Colin? I do commend you, Colin, on a very thorough and informative annual report. Good job. Okay. If nothing else for the fire department, we'll move on to Western Berks Ambulance. Tony.
Unmute your microphone, Tony. You're a professional. Thank you, Melissa, for giving me control to do that. Yep. So I have a lot to go over with you today, and I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. For December, there were 283 incidents in the borough of Wyomissing. 219 of those were transported. Again, our dispatch to responding average is 1 minute, 7 seconds. Our average scene time is 14:55, well under our 6 minutes, with most of the patients going to Reading Hospital. Again, the breakdown, there were 32 calls to the Highlands and 14 to Country Meadows. On our detail report, which Melissa will share out with you momentarily. Oh, stop share. I don't know why that did that. Should be, hold on. That would be that screen. Sorry. This is our 60th year of service for Western Berks. 2021 started in 1961. Started back with 5 people getting their cards to start Western Berks Ambulance from the West Lawn Lions Club. Since then, we're at 5 stations with the 2 new stations in Birdsboro and 1 in Amity. We have 140 employees, 14 ambulances, 9 wheelchair vans, and 4 squads. 2 of those are mental health vehicles. Key points for this. COVID started in February. It's ongoing. Reduced call volume from the pandemic, but has severely taken a major uptick in December. We created the Joint Count EMS COVID Task Force. We also meet with fire departments on Sunday and police chiefs on Wednesday, trying to pass on as much information as we can to them. And then we have doctors from all 5 hospital systems on there to also answer any questions. We did obtain the PPP and got a grant from Berks for $100,000 for the CARES Act. In 2020, we responded to 2,853 calls for wire missing, with the breakdown as follows: 1,104 ALS, 334 that were dispatched as ALS but downgraded to BLS, 1,320 BLS calls, and 95 type of others. Total volume by hour, as you can see on this, and it's a little small to see, but 1,600 seemed to be the busiest hour for the year. And again, average responding time, 1.14, well below our average and all that. And then 13 minutes on scene. So I do have some COVID updates for you guys, and I just want to attach these in here. You know, right now, in all of the years butted up, there are 359,000 deaths for influenza tied to it, and we've had 356 at the time of this report. But what's interesting is this, and it's this screen right here that I'm talking about. This curve here is basically the average curve, and you can see the average PA deaths is usually right around here on the average for the last 5 years. When we hit COVID, you can see where those deaths actually went up, just basically started to low down and then went back up into the first of the year. Those are all related to COVID. 4 firefighters and EMS have died from it. And going back to the excess, as you can see, these are the years from 17, 18, 19, and 20, that normal curve that we have, up in the beginning of the year, down through the summer months, back up. And again, you see that curve there, and in dramatic form, you can see COVID starting and those extra deaths due to COVID. Some of the things we talk about, and just only old people die from it, they said. Again, you can see the stagnant lines, with red being 2020 and the gray lines being 2015 through 2019. But again, we've been knee deep in this. The opioid crisis continues. It has actually increased more due to COVID. The statistics below for the last how many years, we were not 143 opioid deaths in Berks County. We gave 9 Narcan administrations. There was 1 death that lived in the borough and 1 death that he lived in the borough and 1 death in the borough. And the breakdown of where that was there. The one key thing that we talk about with all of our staff all the time is we go to the early morning dashboard for the state. This is Berks County, which is great. We are all finally in downward arrows over the last 7 days. We have dropped from the previous 7 days to 1,100 newly reported cases. Our incident rate is down almost 100. Our PCR testing positivity rate is down. Our average hospitalizations is down, and we were increasing for quite some time. Our daily COVID on ventilators is down, and our percent of hospital visits is 1.2 over the last 7 days. Understanding the state is 0.8. So they were 0.8 and 0.8. So we were well above that information there. And the last thing I want to talk about is where the scare comes in from positivity rate. And people say, oh, the positivity rate is down. It was 15% there. Well, the problem is that's serialized tests. So they take all the tests that they do for COVID testing and put them all together and say, here's our positivity rate. Well, if I'm testing nursing home patients every day, I'm testing staff twice a week, those numbers go up. So right now, when this report was done on the 14th, we were at a 47% positivity rate in Berks County on first test positivity. So not taking out all those serialized tests out of the mix, this is what the actual number is of positivity rate in there. It wasn't 15%, it's 48%. And that's all I have for you guys.
Tony, one question. Do you, so people don't clog the system, is the state still encouraging that people who have no symptoms whatsoever, really haven't been exposed to anyone, should they still get tested or
So-
are we just blocking the system for those who do need to get tested?
So basically, what they're doing right now is if you are asymptomatic, is what you're saying, Bill. Again, they're saying that 5 days after you were exposed is when you should probably get tested. Once you've been exposed, if they tell you you've been exposed and you're having symptoms or you're asymptomatic, they're saying at least 5 days from the start. Because if you say, "Oh, I was exposed to someone today," well, you can go out and get tested and it's going to be negative because it takes a while for that viral load to get loaded up into your system and show that positive result. So it's about 5 days. We've had at Western Berks, we've had one paramedic out on positive COVID. He also got the monoclonal infusion at Tower Health, which decreased his symptoms dramatically over a day. I mean, he had it pretty bad, but he was not ever in the hospital. But they're offering that monoclonal infusion to help take away some of the symptoms, kind of like what the president got when they talk about Regeneron and all that kind of stuff. They had a monoclonal infusion. We've had a bunch of people had symptoms, but we've only had a couple that have tested positive. But yeah, you should still get tested about 5 days in.
Okay, all righty.
And vaccinations are ongoing. I am complete. I've got both of my shots. We've facilitated a lot of people getting in to get their shots for our first responders and our police. Lehigh Valley and St. Luke's Hospital have been tremendous allies to us. They started giving shots out the third week of December, probably about 4 days after the fact that they started getting their drugs, and they automatically opened it up to first responders of all 6 counties. Tower and St. Joe's have finally come through and just started opening it, but the problem is they don't have vaccine. So if you're trying to get it because you're over 65 or have those extra secondary exposures that you need to get the vaccine that puts you up into the flow, there's not really out there. Right now, we are participating with Wyomissing Pediatric Department, peds over at Body Zone. We have 6 paramedics over there giving vaccinations right now. Their vaccinations filled up within the first 5 minutes of releasing them. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have 2 paramedics or 3 paramedics going up to Allentown, to the Allentown Fairgrounds, to assist the Eastern PA with giving vaccinations. So we're trying to vaccinate as many people as possible, but they fill up like that.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Tony?
Yeah, Tony, besides Narcan, are there any other opioid antidotes out there? Or is that it?
That's it.
All I wanted to know.
That's all we got, John. And I knew someone else had a comment in there that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the supply of the vaccination. How's that? It seems to be, I don't know, up and down and all over the place, or numbers are different or whatever. Is that?
Yeah, the problem is it's the request to the usage and their distribution system. Thank God they're not using the post office, because I think we'd be really in trouble. But, vaccines flow in, they flow out. I mean, the Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at very, very, very ultra low temperatures, minus like 70 degrees. The Moderna, which is a 2-shot concoction, the Moderna has to also be kept at a lower temperature, I think it's minus 25. So they can only take so many vaccines out, and they can only open that refrigerator once per day on those. So they do that. And then now we've got, hopefully, Johnson & Johnson should be going to the FDA this week sometime, and so would the AstraZeneca one. Those are 1-shot. So hopefully with those 2 additional ones, there'll be an influx of more vaccine. But again, it's been hit or miss in the beginning. I mean, you can go over to the state dashboard for that, and it'll tell you who's got vaccine. The one thing I can recommend is if you go to the PA Department of Health and COVID vaccine, there is a website for that on that. And you can actually go in and where can I get vaccine? The Rite Aid in West Reading has vaccine, and unless I'm going to steal your share again, can you make me a host real quick or stop your share? You can go to the PA Department of Health's website now, guys, and you can literally zoom in, and green is who has vaccine at the time, and red is who doesn't have vaccine. So when you zoom into here, like you can click on this link right here. The Rite Aid in West Reading has it. You click on the link. It'll allow you to open the application. This one. You'll go into a queue, and it'll let you know that there's 3,600 people in the queue ahead of you. You'll wait, and then it'll give you, as of this time, there are no currently appointments available, or check back tomorrow. But you can go onto that site and go and get vaccine. Anywhere that has green has it. Surgical Institute, but they don't have a thing for it. Anywhere it has a link. That's helpful for everyone. If you know somebody who wants to get the vaccine, go to the PA Department of Health, that COVID vaccine, and you can actually see it in there and try and get in. And we'll try and forward you as much information out as we can once we get it. I mean, I know the fire department and law enforcement have been several locations to go. Lehigh Valley, and much of Colin's guys went up to Lehigh Valley. Is that correct, Colin?
Yeah, a bunch of us went through the county, and now, a bunch are going up to Lehigh Valley and try and get it locally. Some went to Reading Peds, has some opportunities as well.
We also get calls at night, like towards the end of the evening, when they have extra doses that we just blast it out to everyone we can if they want to go get it. And it's a first come, first serve. But, we're trying our best to get the vaccine out there for you guys. Any other questions on COVID or?
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to the police department, Sergeant Phillips.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. So I believe the annual report, everybody has the ability to see a copy of it. It was my first time doing this. It was quite an adventure and task to get completed, but it was actually very interesting too, because something I've never done, and to see everything that we got accomplished in this year, especially in the year of COVID. It is something that has affected us, as Colin explained, it affected the fire company as well. In the beginning of the report, I did an executive summary that kind of talks about some of the main points that are listed throughout the whole report. So I'll go over that. And if anybody has any questions of more in depth, just let me know. But in 2020, we had our lowest rate of criminal offenses of 448. Last year was the lowest year since 1984, but we were lower than last year. We responded to a total of 5,662 calls for service. Again, that's a trend that's down from last year, and it's a trend that we've been seeing over the last few years. But last year was a pretty big jump, and again, we think it was because of COVID, where just people were not out and about creating those calls for service. We had arrests were actually up though. We arrested a total of 318 people, both adults and juveniles, for criminal offenses. We issued a combined total of 1,049 traffic citations, parking tickets, or warnings. We responded to 503 crashes. 303 were non-reportable and 200 were reportable. A reportable crash is a crash in which somebody either goes to the hospital or the vehicle has to be towed. Non-reportable is a fender bender type thing. We were able to patrol a total of 120,399 miles throughout the borough using all our vehicles, and went through 11,875 gallons of fuel. We collected $59,263 from arrests, collected fine monies, requests for reports, and billings for excessive alarms. So we're at 20 officers as of this date. We were at 23, but with retirements, we're down right now. So if anybody has any further questions about the report, I don't know if you had time to look through it more fully. I'll be glad to go over anything. But as I said, those are the highlights of the entire report.
I'd like to make a comment and ask a question. John, I thought really good report. I read through it this morning. It very thorough and very informative. I think you did a nice job on that. The other week we were on a call and you mentioned that you cut out the Wawa area and created that as a separate like reporting area or call center. You know, just looking at this report and looking at the ones that come out on a daily basis, it almost seems like you should create some manpower study about how much wasted manpower you do on the hotels, the Inn at Reading specifically. I mean, it just seems a shame for the amount of resources that you're tying up on an ongoing basis to answer what looks like in many cases nuisance calls. And I don't know. I know the township or the borough fines them for the fire. It almost seems like somehow there should be some repercussions. It's just not fair to the rest of the borough residents to supplement and spend the amount of dollars and manpower that you're spending for one area compared to disproportionate to other industries and other residents and other businesses. Just a comment. And I don't know what the answer is, but it just doesn't seem fair.
Certain areas have changed over the years and we're doing more in those areas than we did before. That is true. Does anybody else have any other questions on the report? As I said, it's pretty lengthy. I didn't want to sit here and take up all our time and get through it. But you know, with COVID, we were pretty active, more active than I thought we were going to be. We had a couple of unusual events, which you saw there. We just went by with the protesting that had gone on throughout the entire country. We were not immune to that. We had a couple of events here in the borough as well. Luckily, that what we didn't see was loss in property or damage to property. We were lucky in what we saw around the country. There was a lot of looting going on. In our protests, we did not have that. We were very fortunate in that. So if there's no other questions about the report, I wanted to talk to you about the towing and storage of vehicles for the police department. Traditionally, our police department has used KC Auto. It's been that way since I started here. The section of our borough ordinance of 504 states that tow companies that are used by the borough have to go through some certain procedures of letting us know that they have liability insurance or they're bonded, that they let the borough know the fees. And quite honestly, I don't know where anything is kept like that. I assume KC at one point did that because that's who we've always used. KC is not the tow company that they once were. They're not quite as reliable, not as quick. So some other companies have been responding to us and wanting to get our business. So we have received information from V&M Towing, Arntz Recovery Solutions, and Matos, where they've provided the information necessary by the ordinance, and they are requesting that they be used by the municipality. So it would be my recommendation that they be added to the list. And when we have contact with somebody and a car needs to be towed, we try to give them the option of using, if they have a provider that they would rather be used, that they be used. But if for some reason they're giving an hour ETA and we can't have the road closed that time, we call KC. I would like these three to be added to our list of the ability to use them so that the officers would have a choice of alternate companies in which to contact to get a car out of there in a more expeditious means and with time, so that we're not staying on the road and keeping the road closed longer than it needs to be.
John, would there be like would the list be like priority? Start with these people. If they can't do it, and run down the list. Is that how you would do that, or?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't know where the list is currently, if there even is one, but like I said, we've always used KC. These companies are trying to get some of the business from us that we would request them. And that's what we're trying to do, is create this list as the ordinance says that we're supposed to, and give our officers the ability to have a choice as to who they contact. I would say V&M is going to be one that's going to be contacted no matter what. If it's an oversized vehicle, they're the only ones that have that capability for tractor trailers and things like that. Matos is really close. So if we had a vehicle that would need to maybe be towed because it needs to be processed because it was involved in a crime, or it's a recovered vehicle, something like that, but that's a lot closer for us to have to go to their garage to process that vehicle later. Arntz, they submitted their paperwork as well, and they're asking to be considered to be a tow that is utilized by the borough. So there are days that sometimes it's busier than others, and there are more crashes in the county, and we would have to wait longer. So having an option of several companies would benefit us.
Suppose 2 or 3 others start sending in their resume, so to speak, here, then what are you gonna do?
Well, I think there's nothing in the ordinance that prohibits any kind of number. I think if they want to try to meet the criteria of presenting everything that's required by the ordinance, then I think we have to look at that and add them to the list that it says that we're supposed to maintain. And then it just gives there's nothing that says that we have to use them in particular. Right. It's whoever, like I said, I'm leaving it up to the officer then to decide. These are the ones you can use. Give them the option first if they have a preference, but if they don't, utilize one of these.
And how about the rates? Do they seem, they're going by, but are they pretty comparable?
Yes, they look like they're all pretty comparable, and they have to notify us if there's any kind of change, and that's supposed to be maintained by us.
Okay. Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, now, is this something, can we do this in committee, or does this have to go through council?
Chris there?
Yeah, I don't have the ordinance in front of me. John, is there a procedure? Do you have the ordinance in front of you?
I'm looking at it, yes. I think Melissa has the one section 504.
Yeah, I can't read that. It's too small.
It just says, and when the schedule is approved by Borough Council, those charges shall be adhered to.
Okay, that sounds like it's a council decision, so I would look for a recommendation from the committee to council. Also, I have a question for John. What about KC? Have they updated their credentials? Do we have updated qualifications on file?
Again, I don't know. I've never seen any kind of list or any of their, it's just who it's been that we've used since I started here over 23 years ago.
Okay, is it your recommendation to keep KC on the list?
I would say if we keep them on the list, they're going to have to supply everything. It's just, as I said, they've gone through some changes, and they're not the tow company that they once were. On weekends and nights, they don't even have a call service anymore. You have to try to call one of the drivers individually and get them to wake up and come out. It's just, sometimes they don't even answer the phone.
No, jeez.
So that's kind of what we're dealing with here with them.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I would suggest that they either be dropped off the list, or if you want to keep them on the list because there's a history with them, that we or that you obtain, John, updated qualifications so they're on the same level with all the other new candidates.
Okay.
John, one thing that we did a century ago was in January of the year, we used to ask the towing companies if they were still interested and also update their proof of insurance and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, I could do that with KC, like I said, and see what, because I'd like to know what their plans are to try to improve their service as well.
Yeah,
Right.
It's just hard, guys are trying to call in the middle of the night to get a car out that's been involved in a crash and they can't get in touch with anybody.
No.
It's happened more than once.
yeah, that's ridiculous. You know,
Right.
you can't have the guy standing out there blocking up a road for that.
Tom, are you saying that you believe there was a procedure to get these credentials updated on an annual basis? Is that?
Yeah, that was one of my jobs.
Okay. Well, then I think that's something John ought to, set up a system to get this information updated on an annual basis.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, especially with the proof of insurance. And there was also to make sure that the rates, there was always a question. We get a lot of pushback sometimes from people would go and get their cars, and then some towing company want to charge an outrageous amount of money to get their car out of hock. And then, of course, there's always, they say it's collusion with the police department. So what we used to be able to do is ask the person, first of all, if they're able, if they have a preference in something to tow their car, rather than just saying, we're going to put, this is who's going to tow your car. It takes some of the sting out of it, I guess.
John, it also sounds like maybe you need a checklist of what your expectations are from these people, in addition to just the insurance and bonded coverage, like they must be able to respond within a half an hour. They must have night service. They must answer the phone, whatever the criteria is, and maybe you can eliminate some because they're not willing to accept those responsibilities.
It's a good idea.
John, are any of these other companies that you're proposing, are they involved with AAA as well?
Yeah, they're all involved with AAA, but that's a totally different service. If somebody is disabled, let's say, and they've called for AAA, we can't call the tow company anymore to just say, can you come out? They're AAA. We actually have to contact AAA for AAA to dispatch them. So.
No, I was saying, like, in the if there would be a crash and they say, well, I'm a AAA member, get a AAA tow truck for me.
Right. Well, AAA doesn't typically pay for a crash. They pay for disabled, you're got a flat tire, that type of thing. The insurance that you cover on your car is what's paying for the tow for your car to be removed from a crash.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess I'll entertain a motion to have these 3 towing companies and possibly a 4th, depending on KC's qualifications, to bring this before council for a vote.
So moved.
We have a motion, Mayor Levering, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so be it.
And the last thing I wanted to mention, that the money donated by the Wolf family for the license plate readers, the license plate readers have been installed on both vehicles as of this past Wednesday and Thursday. I submitted some pictures so you can see them. Hopefully there you go. Those are the 2 vehicles that they are on. You can see they're on both the back of the vehicle and now the front of the vehicle, so that we can get the license plates of the cars that are directly in front of us. There's a picture of what it looks like from the front. So we thank the Wolf family very much for their generosity, and
yeah,
we are now making use of them.
That's great. I saw in some of the police reports, vehicle stops were as a result of the LPRs, and they found drug paraphernalia in the cars, or they found other, led to other things. So that's great.
Yes.
I do know that Melissa had been in touch with Phil Wolf, and he's now camera shy. So we will not be taking a picture of him in front of the 2 cars, but we'll use this photo and put an article in the Spring Borough newsletter. Again, thanking him, and maybe it'll spur some other residents to make contributions to items of interest to them in the borough. So we'll see, but that's great, John, that they're both in order or in operation now.
Yep.
John, I'll also compliment you. Very detailed report, especially since you haven't done one before. I spent the weekend reading it, and very, very interesting reading.
Thank you.
So, anybody have anything else for John?
Yeah, hi, John. It's the other John speaking. So the officers are down from 23 to 20, and I presume we're still getting the job done, right?
So far, yes, we are.
And is
We're
that
good.
COVID? Is that COVID related, that we can get by with fewer officers, or will that come into play moving forward when life returns to normal, if ever?
I expect calls will increase once COVID is back. Even without COVID over the last several years, our call volume has been going down. So I don't know how far it's going to come back. It will be interesting. We saw a good spike over the summer when people started coming out again. That was our busiest times. But once COVID first began, and since winter has started, our numbers have been a lot lower again. And I expect that trend to continue until the vaccinations that Mr. Tucci was talking about are implemented in higher rates and people are feeling more comfortable about being out. But right now, we just don't see the numbers of people out. It's bigger than it was when COVID first started, but it's not where it once was.
So when COVID goes away, what do you think will happen to the number of officers in the force?
Do you think does it need to increase from 20? Is that what you're asking? Or are you asking, do I think we're going to get sick or?
Oh, no, I'm asking about the numbers of the force.
I think that we should increase from where we are. I don't know that we have to go to 23 again, honestly. At least not right now till we see how things come back and what we've been doing and what's going on with what kind of calls we're handling. We are at a 64% clearance rate overall for our part 1 and part 2, which is very respectable. Our national average for part 1 and part 2 were way above that, the clearance rates. So we are getting the job done, which I'm proud to say.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
That's great. Anybody else have questions for John?
Bill, it's Fred. I have a personnel matter to do with the department that I would like to discuss with the committee in executive session.
Yes, I understand that, Fred, and we'll do that in 1 second. Okay, anything else for the police department? Okay. Before we move into executive session, the other day, Michelle Bear had brought up about this decontamination sprayer, and Tom Boucher had said, who would maintain this thing? I would, assuming that finance is going to say, yes, this is probably a good piece of equipment for us to purchase, and it's financially feasible for us to do so. Just my thought on that would be maybe, Christopher Sam maintaining this thing, because I would imagine it would be used more in the police cars with transportation of prisoners than it would for any other department, and that we just keep it stored at the police department. I just wanted to bring that up, Tom, after giving it some thought.
Good idea.
John, Phillips, you have any objections to that?
I think it could be maintained here. It's just that there may be times when, like at the Borough Hall, may need to get done. The fire company could get done. Any one of the parks buildings could be done with this and their vehicles. That some of that we might want to try to do on a weekend, especially once things maybe start opening up. If I'm sure they will before COVID's technically gone, so that Chris not being here on a weekend, obviously, it may be a little difficult for some areas to get done if he's the only one basically responsible for it.
Well, that would just be to maintain it. I mean, as far as usage, yeah, we'd have other people, able to, get them trained in using the thing. I'm just saying, as far as keeping it charged up and ready to go and have enough chemicals there, at any given time. That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Okay. We are going to adjourn into executive session to discuss a personnel contract matter. Mr. Jake, do you wish to be notified when we return?
Yes, thank you.
All righty, we will contact you. This time we will adjourn to the executive session. Oh, there is Steve. Boy, Steve, you're rather quiet today.
Didn't need to say much.
Okay. Are we missing anyone?
Tom. Oh, no, Tom's there.
I'm here. Oh, Tom Mull.
Yeah, I don't see Tom.
Oh, that's him.
Is Tom all here? Not yet. Okay, we'll give it another minute until Mr. Mall gets back on, signed on.
Jeez.
Tom indicated he was coming back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Maybe the cat got out.
Yeah.
You want me to call him quick?
Yeah, why don't you?
Oh, that wasn't him. Button here.
Hey, Jody, thanks again for passing out that info on Reading Peds.
Oh, good. Well, hopefully.
I guess they had extra, but I got an email from back this morning saying, we're out. We don't have any.
Yeah, they gave out more than 500, I guess, on Saturday, and they're at the Body Zone today doing another 400 plus. So,
Wow.
yeah. Carrie from Western Berks ambulance over there
How is she over there?
with with some of her crew. So,
Ah,
He checked out. He's gone.
okay.
He said, go ahead.
Okay, well then, I'll call, the meeting of the Fire and Police Committee, back to order. We did adjourn in executive session to discuss personnel contract issues. Does anybody have anything else to bring before the committee?
Shouldn't personnel contract issues discussed in personnel meeting? Just a question, just curious.
It relates to the Fire and Police Committee.
Well, I thought the personnel relates to everything.
It's personnel within the Fire and Police.
Sure.
Okay, that answer your question?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jody.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.